Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, of course, more Tears of the Kingdom. My name is Hollow and today we're talking dragons in Zelda. And no, not the ancient ones, but those absolute monstrosities you've seen flying around, the three-eyed Gleeok. These things are terrifying. There's a thunder version, there's a frost version, there's a fire version, and then worst of all, there's a final boss, which is 3 in 1 with an insane super attack that you must somehow climb and overcome. These are extremely fun boss battles, very challenging and very rewarding. That is because they drop these parts, their horns, the Gleeok Flame Horn, Frost Horn, and Thunder Horn. These would appear to be the highest fuse attack power element fuse parts in the game. They're even stronger than, say, the ancient dragon horns, which have 26, and mechanically, they're also more interesting too. For example, the thunder version of the ancient dragon does this, a single sort of strike in front of you, or we can spin round to deal damage around ourselves. With the Gleeok thunder version, the basic attack causes an entire cone in front of you, and the spin is much more deadly. Like a lightsaber of lightning, or the other elements that you want to use, it's phenomenal. The ancient dragon element weapons, though awesome, do run out of charge and require time to actually recover, as you can see, and it only takes a few attacks. That can be quite bad in the middle of a fight. Meanwhile, the Gleeok weapons, there's no worries about that. You can just go to town. They're incredible. It seems to me then that the Gleeok dragon horns are the best elemental parts to fuse in the game. How are you going to take these big bads down then? Well, you'll want to prepare a few things, and I have some suggestions, but ultimately it's up to you how hard you go on the preparation. All Gleeoks have the same theme, 3 eyes that are their critical weak points. By targeting these and breaking all 3, you can stun them, bringing them down, allowing you to rush in with melee attacks, targeting again the eyes for critical damage, working their health down this way. While they are active though and not stunned, they will buffet you with wings, so if you get too close, you'll be ragdolled to the ground and pretty much instantly taken down because you'll be vulnerable. After dealing enough damage, you will reach the final phase where they will try to do their version of a super attack depending on the element Gleeok. Let's talk about the equipment you probably need to bring, and then we'll talk about specific Gleeoks and what advice I have for that. Let's start with your weapons. A high raw weapon is always going to be a good idea, but these are elemental creatures. Each has a weakness. For example, if you're fighting the fire one, using ice weapons is a great idea. So bringing the correct element weapon against the right fight is going to be the way to go. We have thunder, we have ice, we have fire, and there's also wind to use as well. Further, if you have the Master Sword, this is probably the best option. Fuse this with a powerful element, such as maybe an ancient dragon element like so, and you can get some incredible DPS with that. Having a few backups is important though. Your main weapon is probably going to break, and probably the second and maybe even the third, so be ready for that. But we're going to be needing to aim for eyes. We're dealing a lot of damage with bow. It's a major aspect of these fights, so you're going to want to bring a very good bow. I would recommend a Lionel bow because these fire 3 shots in 1, and the DPS output with that can be incredible. We can get a Lionel bow from any Lionel kill, or you can loot this chest in this cave. This is the Cape Kale's cliff-based cave. That's the chest in the crow's nest of the boat inside the cave, and that can either be a mighty or savage Lionel bow if you're lucky. I have a whole video guide on this and how to upgrade the bow and even restore its durability to keep it alive forever, so go watch that if you want. But otherwise, I would recommend a Royal Guard bow, which you can actually get behind me up there in the castle of Hyrule in the main throne room. There's actually a bow on the side and one in the upper room, and these respawn every blood moon, so there's no reason to not at least have that. Next, let's talk about food and equipment. I would recommend you have an attack up boost, be that food or elixir. Bananas are a great source of attack up food, and you can pick up a bunch of them down here on Eventide Island at the bottom right of the map. I would also recommend any hearty food. Just by cooking this, you're going to get a very important property on food, which is +3 temporary hearts, and you can get full recovery, as you can see. So it doesn't matter how many hearts you have, it's going to fully heal you and give you +3. This can be clutch with these really high damaging enemies. Each Gleeok requires a different perspective and approach though. There are multiple Gleeoks of the different elements around the map, but I'll talk about 3 specific ones so you know where they are, and then the final big bad, the King Gleeok. We'll start with the fire one, which of course has the weakness to ice. You find it here on this grouping of rocks on Spectacle Rock, which is southwest of the whole map near the Gerudo Desert. You're going to want some heat resistance because it's quite a hot area. You can either eat for that or use the Desert Voe headband like I have here, which you can pick up here in the Karakara Bazaar on the way into the center of Gerudo Desert. There's a general store there where they sell the helm for 500 rupees. The rule with all Gleeoks then is to shoot them in their eyes. You must take out the health bar of all 3 eyes, and then that will stun it, providing you with a DPS window. The goal is then to use a bow in slow-mo to deal the damage to these eyes, ideally with very powerful shots. In this case, with it being a Fire Gleeok, ice shots are going to be a great idea. So for shooting eyes, doing it with slow-mo is good, but from standstill you can use, say, Keese eyes to be accurately shooting those eyes. What I do is leap from the rock repeatedly in this fight, causing slow-mo over and over to shoot in the eye. Then its heads hang over the side, and it's a bit awkward again on these rocks. There are places you can stand to easily get to these, and repeatedly ascend to this specific spot to hit the head. You want to be hitting the eyes for the maximum damage though, because that's where they're weakest, and if you're smart, you won't do what I'm doing and fighting it on the rock like this. You just move away, and it will eventually fly and move and land on the ground, or you'll knock it to the ground, and then you can fight in a more normal way. The attacks that it will do will be sort of laser beams of fire, which track you. You can run to the side to avoid these, or the big explosive shots, which you absolutely want to run out the way of. Either way, bash the hell out of this thing with your ice weapons and ice shots, shooting in the eyes every time it gets up so it stuns, ascending for slow-mo to help with that, and finishing it off as best you can. Eventually, you will put it low enough that it will go up high into the air. Avoiding the big fire blast is going to be key here, and then you can use the wind tunnels that it creates to get up high, knock it out the sky, and finish it off. Next up then, we have the Frost Gleeok. Its element is ice, and of course its weakness is fire, so you want to bring fire element weapons. This ice one in particular you can find here on this stamp on another sort of outcropping of rocks on the Gerudo Summit Mountain. These two are actually quite near each other, as you can see, and it's just above the Skyview Tower here. In that area it's particularly cold though, so you want 2 pieces of cold resist. We do have the legs here that you begin with, warm greaves in the tutorial island, and you can easily buy, say, a chest piece for another level in the case of the Snow Quill Tunic. This will be another 500 rupees bought from the armor store in Rito Village, which is the northern western point of the map. So we're going to bring the Master Sword and something with fire, or any high damage weapon infused with a fire element. You can also use arrows infused with, say, the fire flowers, which will be a great source of damage here too. Much like the same though, you want to jump off the rock it's standing on and slow-mo fire repeatedly into the eyes to bring it down. You can ascend onto the massive sword sticking out the ground right next to the platform, which really helps. You're leaping off that over and over. With that though, it does work pretty much the same, and eventually if it does go up into the sky, avoid its blast, get up in the air and finish it off. The last element to consider then is going to be the Thunder Gleeok, which weakness is actually apparently wind, which is a strange one. Wind is something that you can get with the 8-fold blades of the Yiga clan. They fire wind projectiles, but honestly I just don't think it's worth the effort. Using normal damage is more than fine, but this is the worst of the 3 in my opinion with dealing with it in this specific environment. You'll find it down here at the south section, just south of Faron, on this sort of hill plateau that goes up like steps. There's a stable, the Lakeside Stable, and the shrine just to the east of it as an easy access point. I would also recommend shock resistance. There's an armor set that's quite easy to get in the same area you fight the Gleeok, the rubber set, just giving you that shock resistance to help you survive in the fight, especially when you get blasted by everything. It's in an awkward environment though. There's basically constantly a thunderstorm when fighting it, meaning your metallic weapons and armor and so on are not going to help here. You'll get bursted by the lightning. That alone makes it a tough fight, but it also doesn't have anything easy to jump off to repeatedly slow-mo. There are a couple of rockets towards the entrance of the arena as you climb up the plateau steps. You can use those to get at least 2 slow-mos for 2 knockdowns, but you'll want to bring something with you, maybe a spring to get in the air. This was a sloppy kill for me in this footage. It was my first Gleeok kill, and I fought it in a relatively normal way. Abusing the slow-mo is going to be key though, so being prepared and bringing something like a spring you can repeatedly use is a good idea. But it's the same as the other 2. Slow-mo repeatedly, take the eyes out, knock it down, DPS it, and if it does go super into the air, then get up high and knock it straight down. But now it's time to talk about the big boy, the King Gleeok, which is, as you can see, all 3 in 1. 3 heads, each having a different element of thunder, ice, and fire, and that means each head is weak to the respective thing. So if you're hitting the ice head, you want to be using a fire weapon. You don't have to overcomplicate this. You can bring one element that's going to serve you well, and then just target the specific head that's weak to that. You don't need to bring all 3 elements or whatever. It is the toughest for obvious reasons, has the highest damage, it's got a lot of health, and its super attack, the finale, is easily the worst. Now, as you can see, the fight itself takes place on a platform that's high up in the sky. It is actually particularly very high in the sky and quite hard to reach, so I'm just going to show you how to do that. I'm standing here at this tower, which is going to be the place that we work our way up from. This is right here, Lindor's Brow, on the west side of the map. Platform, if we were to take a look at the Sky Islands, is actually all the way over here where I've put the skull, right here on the very west side of the Hebra sky. From that tower, we can actually see the platform all the way to the northwest. As you can see, it's very far away, so we're going to have to go to a couple other things to make it there. Starting with landing on top of this, there's an island there. Then from there, we use a Zonite machine to fly over to the nearby islands. From here, we work our way up, following the puzzles and unlocking the fast travel points of the shrines and some useful items. On the map, that will get you to Lightcast Island, which is where we begin to make a Zonite machine and then fly all the way over to the boss platform to the northwest, reaching it through that means. It should not be that hard to make any machine really with some fans, and then glide the rest of the way there, even if you have low battery. But yeah, that's the route that I took to get there. The environment's a bit awkward to fight because you don't have like a rock to jump off over and over, but there are these sort of podiums or pillars of rock. We can use these as hard cover, hiding behind them when it's attacking, and then as it's recovering from those attacks, quickly climbing up, jumping off them, and slow-mo shooting them in the eyes. You want to keep it to sort of a medium range. Because the damage is so high on this one, I would recommend preparing as much as possible, even picking up some fairies if you can before the fight, like I did. But ultimately, it's not that different to the fights, just the 3 elements that you got to worry about. Using the pillars as hard cover, jumping off of them, and repeatedly DPSing through that, you kind of fight the same way. It's not until the super final, like last 25%, that things get really tough and it flies up really high up into the air like the others, but stays there. From there, it does an entirely new attack compared to the others, where you have pillars of lightning and frost coming down upon you. You must dodge these pillars as they warn you where they're about to land, and then use them against the monster. Lightning pillars will zap and explode the spot, but then leave a wind tunnel for you to use, whereas the ice pillars are going to warn you that an ice spike is coming from the sky on that spot, and it's very quick and will pretty much one-shot you if it's either hitting you. The ice can actually be reversed, sending it back in time to use as a sort of elevator sending you up, but I don't recommend this because you've got to keep moving and avoiding all the attacks. If you're standing on that ice, you're just going to get blown up. My strategy here then was to keep moving, gliding into the wind tunnels made by the electricity as much as possible, getting higher and higher. But whenever I had to, I would cancel the glide and dive, because diving makes me move faster, allowing me to actually avoid all of the projectiles everywhere. Working my way up higher and higher by prioritizing avoiding damage, eventually getting high enough to face him in the sky, shoot those eyes out again, and bring him down. For this, you'll get the monster parts again, and one of each horn element. But a chest will spawn. In that chest is one Sage's Will, which is what we use to upgrade our bond abilities, which are unlocked in the main story. You need to find 4 of them to upgrade that, however, and they're very rare, which is why one drops from this big bad boss here. But there you have it. That is my overview and guide to the Gleeoks. The details I think you need to know when facing these guys. They certainly require some preparation and are very deadly and dangerous, but they are so fun to fight. So I really recommend you give it a go, and good luck if you do. The rewards are obviously huge. These elemental weapons are incredibly strong and easily the strongest I've seen in the game. If you have any extra tips to help people defeat the Gleeoks, then drop it in the comments. You might just help someone. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.